It began with an email. No sender, no subject, just a single line. Come home. Arthur stared at the message. His childhood home had burned down 20 years ago in a fire that killed his parents. Or so he had been told. He tried to delete the email, but it reappeared seconds later, and this time, there was an attachment. A photograph of the old house, perfectly intact, its windows glowing with a warm orange light. Arthur should have ignored it, but curiosity, or something darker, pulled him back to Hollow Creek. The house stood at the end of a rotting path, exactly as it had in his memories, only wrong. Its paint peeled like dead skin, yet the windows shimmered as if wet. When he stepped onto the porch, the boards groaned, not from weight, but as if they were exhaling. Inside smelled of damp earth and iron. The wallpaper pulsed slightly like flesh under thin skin. He whispered his parents' names, and the house answered with a sound like laughter leaking through teeth. As night fell, Arthur explored the upper floors. Family photos lined the hallway, but their faces were wrong. The eyes were too large, pupils too dark, and in each frame, their heads were tilted, watching him. He entered his old bedroom. Everything was untouched: the toy chest, the cracked window, the bed. But the mattress sagged as if someone invisible sat upon it. He froze as he saw his reflection in the cracked mirror, his own face smiling when he wasn't. The smile widened, stretching the reflection's jaw until it split, revealing black gums and rows of thin needle teeth. The reflection whispered, "You came home." He ran, but the house shifted like a maze. The front door was gone. Every hallway led him down, deeper, until he stood before a door he didn't remember. Black wood, slick as oil. From behind it came the sound of chewing. He opened it. The basement stretched impossibly far, lit by dim bulbs that flickered like dying stars. The floor was covered in bones. At the far end, something moved, tall, jointed wrong, head tilting like the photographs. Its face was a perfect mask of his mother's smile. It spoke in a voice made of every whisper he had ever ignored. "Stay. We've missed you." The lights died. Something wet touched his neck. When Hollow Creek's sheriff found the house weeks later, it was empty, except for photographs. Hundreds of them, covering every wall, every surface. Each photo showed Arthur smiling wide, his head tilted too far. In the last picture, his arms were open as if to embrace the viewer, and the house behind him was grinning. Arthur woke up on the living room floor. He didn't remember falling asleep, or closing his eyes at all. The air tasted metallic. Every sound was muffled, as though the walls were listening. And then he saw it. His name scratched into the wallpaper, hundreds of times, in frantic strokes. Some were written so deep that the wood beneath was exposed, as if someone had clawed their nails until they bled. When he touched the grooves, the wall was warm. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. From upstairs came a voice, his mother's voice, soft, sweet, calling, "Dinner's ready." Arthur followed the voice to the dining room. The table was set for 4. Plates, silverware, a centerpiece of wilted flowers. The air smelled of cooked meat, rich and greasy. On the plates were slabs of something dark and steaming. At first he thought it was beef. Then he saw the fingernails. He stumbled back, gagging, and then froze. The chairs were no longer empty. His parents sat at the table, smiling, their eyes black voids. In the 4th chair was Arthur himself, grinning like a corpse puppet. The other Arthur whispered without moving its lips, "Eat. Or we'll eat for you." Desperate, he fled to the 2nd floor. A door he didn't remember was now open. Inside was a nursery. His old toys lined the shelves, but they were wrong. Their faces were melted, stitched back together with black thread. The rocking horse moved slowly on its own. In the crib lay something bundled in a blanket. It giggled softly. When Arthur peeled back the cloth, his breath froze. Inside was a tiny version of himself, no bigger than a doll, its mouth stretching unnaturally wide. It spoke in his voice, but higher, childlike. "Don't leave me again." Then it climbed up his arm with bone-thin fingers. Arthur tore the thing off and ran. He found himself at the end of a hallway that had not been there before. At the end was a door, tall, wrong, covered in carvings of open eyes. The wood was slick with something black, dripping slowly to the floor. Behind it, he heard hundreds of voices whispering his name. When he turned the knob, the hallway folded in on itself. The house breathed in, and everything went black. He woke in a room without doors, without windows, just walls covered in mirrors. But the mirrors didn't show him. They showed other versions of him, each dead in a different way. Hanging, burned, drowned, hollow-eyed. Then one of the reflections moved on its own. It stepped out of the glass. Arthur ran until his lungs burned, but the halls kept looping. Every door led to the same place, back to the room of mirrors. The reflections were closer now, all smiling. The house whispered, low and hungry, "You are home. And home is forever." In a final act of defiance, Arthur smashed one of the mirrors. Behind the shards was a stairway leading down. He descended into a cavern beneath the house, a place of dripping stone and writhing roots that pulsed like veins. At the center stood the house itself, but alive, a colossal organism of wood and flesh fused together, with hundreds of glassy eyes blinking across its surface. Doors opened and closed like mouths chewing, and from the roots grew people. Dozens of them, stitched into the walls, their faces stretched into screams. He recognized them, his parents, his friends, strangers, all part of the house now. The largest eye rolled toward him, and a mouth in the ceiling spoke. "You were never meant to leave." The roots surged upward. Weeks later, a real estate agent walked through the old house to prepare it for demolition. It was empty, except for one thing: a camera on the dining table. Inside the camera was a single photo. It showed Arthur smiling in front of the house, his arms open wide, head tilted at an impossible angle. Behind him, the windows formed two enormous eyes, and the door stretched into a gaping, toothy grin. They demolished the house in spring. Or at least, they thought they did. The workers tore down the walls, splintered the beams, and hauled the rubble away in rusted trucks. But beneath the cracked foundations, the soil pulsed faintly, as if something huge was sleeping there. 2 weeks later, the first new homes went up. Fresh paint, white fences, smiling families. No one questioned why the air in Hollow Creek always smelled faintly of wet wood. By autumn, the families began to disappear. Mailboxes overflowed, lights flickered at night, and neighbors swore they heard breathing under the floorboards. And then came the photographs. They appeared in mailboxes with no return address. Blurry shots of people standing in front of their homes, smiling too widely, heads tilted at unnatural angles. In the background, behind the neat new houses, something vast and dark loomed, its windows glimmering like eyes. When the town vanished, the forest grew over it in weeks. The land was listed for sale again within the year. The real estate ad read, "A perfect place to raise a family. Feels just like home." Somewhere far below, under roots and rock, the house smiled and waited.